Making headlines tonight, the IMF says Barbados is making good progress with economic reform. Growing concern about home isolation patients becoming flight risks. A royal presence expected for Barbados' transition to becoming a republic. And coming up in sports, New Zealand and India keep the race open for semi-final spots with crucial World Cup wins.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. The International Monetary Fund has concluded its 6th review of Barbados under the Extended Fund Facility. It says Barbados remains on track. And government's senior economic advisor, Dr. Kevin Greenidge, has been reflecting on the report. Crystal Hoyt has the details.
Despite the pandemic, volcanic ashfall, and a Category 1 hurricane, Barbados continues to make good progress in implementing its economic reform programs. This is according to the International Monetary Fund's latest review under the Extended Fund Facility. In its most recent mission concluding statement, the IMF revealed that as of October 2021, Barbados' international reserves increased to US $1.4 billion. This, as well as a successful 2018-2019 debt restructuring, have helped to rebuild confidence in the country's macroeconomic framework. However, the IMF noted that a virtual standstill in the tourism sector during the pandemic took a significant toll on the economy in 2020, resulting in contraction of 18%. Responding to the latest review is Senior Economic Advisor to the Barbados government, Dr. Kevin Greenidge.
The IMF just concluded its 6th review and Article 4 review of our work program. The general conclusion is that we've made good progress basically under the program. We have met all our structural benchmarks for end September and October. The only one that is delayed is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is an act supposed to pass in Parliament, which will promote fairness and accuracy in terms of reporting on personal credit information collected by credit bureaus, etc. That delay was caused to allow for further discussions among all parties involved. We expect and we're committed to passing by mid-November.
He adds that with the winter season upon us, some economic growth is expected.
This year, 2021, we've seen some recovery, a little better than what we saw last year. Particularly between the April and now period, we've seen tourism starting to pick up. A little less than we would have expected at the beginning of the year, but then we had the two natural disasters, the ashfall, Hurricane Elsa, and we continue to, even while we're making progress on keeping COVID on the check, we still continue to be affected by that.
Dr. Greenidge says the report reflects positively on the country and should assist when Barbados meets with 2 rating agencies next week. The 7th and final review under the program is scheduled for early next year. Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
Thanks, Crystal. There's growing concern about COVID-19 positive patients in home isolation becoming flight risks, basically leaving their house and possibly posing a danger to others in the community. Consultant Manager of Home Isolation, Dr. Adana Grandison, gave an update on the morning report. Now, currently over 6,000 people are in home isolation. However, Dr. Grandison says there are some worrying trends emerging for the 40 to 50 age group.
We have noticed that there are some persons who are between 40 and 50 who have become flight risks. And this is the beauty of the evolution of looking at the dashboard and being able to see those persons who have essentially attempted to breach isolation. Initially, we would have thought that that particular age group, 40 to 50, may not have given some concern, but we are now starting to see that is an increasing concern in the 40 to 50 age group, and so we have attempted to ban those individuals as well.
Dr. Grandison also highlights another challenge with the program where positive individuals flagged red or yellow are refusing the transport and care required for their condition.
We have seen situations where, because of fear, I know there are a lot of videos and WhatsApp messages circulating that can at times spread some misinformation, may not be intentional, so it may be just misinformation and in sometimes disinformation. And so I wanted to encourage persons to really appreciate that this assessment at a central isolation facility is essentially a doctor's visit. We want to make sure that you are staying safe. Those doctors can have a very hands-on approach in terms of how they assess you and really be able to identify if there's any reason for concern. There are lots of factors that come into play when we assess, triage a person essentially as a red or yellow.
A 58-year-old Barbadian woman is the latest reported COVID-19 death. She died yesterday at the Harrison Point Isolation Facility. She was unvaccinated. The total number of deaths from the virus now stands at 170. Minister of Health and Wellness, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, has extended condolences to her loved ones. Meanwhile, COVID-19 cases continue to be high. A total of 328 new cases were identified by the Best dos Santos Public Health Lab out of 1,892 tests yesterday. There were 146 males and 182 females. The new positives comprised 99 persons who were under the age of 18, and there were 926 people in isolation facilities and 6,403 in home isolation. Heir to the British throne, His Royal Highness Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, is to visit Barbados to mark the country's transition to a republic. Prince Charles was last in Barbados in 2019 when he paid a royal visit to the island as part of a Caribbean tour. Clarence House, the official residence of the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, says Prince Charles, as future head of the Commonwealth, was invited by Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley to be guest of honor at the Republic celebrations events. Only last month, Barbados elected Governor General Dame Sandra Mason to be the first president to replace Queen Elizabeth II as head of state. During his visit, the prince will also undertake a short program of engagements in Barbados. This year's edition of the National Independence Festival of Creative Arts will be held virtually. Under the theme, The Tradition of Excellence Continues, NIFCA Online will feature a virtual exhibition of the National Collection of Visual Arts, a musical documentary and production, an historical anthology of Barbados, and several other scheduled events. Chief Cultural Officer at the National Cultural Foundation, Andrea Wells, says there will even be 2 nights of drive-in film screenings of past NIFCA Film and Video Gold awardees.
This year, you can celebrate NIFCA Film Gold in the NCF's own drive-in cinema in our car park, celebrating some of our top gold awarded films over the years of NIFCA Film. But film is also going to be celebrated online. You can look out for 4 film features that will be launched online that celebrate and examine closely the life of 4 of our NIFCA icons. As you can see, a rich feast of Barbadian creativity awaits you. Just tune in to www.nifcaonline.com.
NIFCA Online runs from November 4th to 28th. Human trafficking in the Caribbean remains prevalent even in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and traffickers are finding new means to lure their victims. This is according to UNDP Resident Representative Valerie Cliff, who says human traffickers are now using social media to recruit new victims. She made this revelation during a virtual ceremony for members of the Royal Barbados Police Force who recently completed training in the prevention, identification, and suppression of human trafficking.
Previously, traffickers tended to operate as part of a organization, and more recently, this has been supplemented by people who appear to operate more individually, and that there's an increase in the use of social media as a means of luring victims, and that may certainly have increased further during the pandemic.
The training initiative was spearheaded by USAID and the UNDP in partnership with the Office of the Attorney General. USAID Regional Representative for the Eastern and Southern Caribbean, Clinton White, says the training is intended to improve law enforcement's capacity to prosecute traffickers.
In the Eastern and Southern Caribbean, USAID is committed to supporting our partner countries to enhance state capacity responses And this training is another example of our effort and commitment. This training was designed specifically for law enforcement officers. It builds on USAID's capacity strengthening efforts, which took place in March with immigration and custom officials and judicial officers, and the training done in August for the wider police force.
$700,000. That's the target the Salvation Army has set for its Christmas Kettle Appeal this year. During the launch this morning in Heroes Square, the Army's Board Advisor Chair, Paul Bernstein, said the funding will go towards assisting with year-round programs.
I am very, very, very proud to say that from January this year to the end of September this year, which is only 9 months, which is actually 3/4 of a year, we have actually provided the following: 26,330 hot meals, of which 8,139 of those meals were delivered to shut-ins. 419 people received clothing. Furnishings were given to 25 families, and 38 persons received other help. We also gave out 1,600 food hampers to assist the most vulnerable.
The Salvation Army is also hoping to distribute 4,000 Christmas hampers next month, and People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Minister Cynthia Ford wants Barbadians to contribute whatever they can to ensure the group meets its goals.
I want the red kettles to be brimming to the top, to be brimming from top to bottom, bottom to top, across the length and breadth of Barbados. And I am not one of those persons, and you will learn that perhaps when I'm gone, that I am not there about largesse. If you cannot give a $20, a 10 will do, a 5 will do, a 2 will do, a silver dollar will do. But you know what? There are many of us who can put in a Grantley or two.
Despite the dreadful impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, the St. Leonard's Anglican Church continues its outreach work. Rector Reverend Dr. Sonia Hines says individuals are benefiting from their food drive, which seeks to connect the church with the community.
What we were able to continue during COVID, including this morning again, is what was then called, which was initiated just about 2 years ago, the Deacon's Cupboard. And the Deacon's Cupboard is where members of the parish bring grocery items, personal items, and then we are able to package them. And persons are still able to come. They will not be able to get a meal, but they are able to take away enough that they can make their own meal. So that is something in terms of the response to COVID that we have been doing.
Reverend Hines also says showing care for each other is extremely important during these challenging times.
We have to care for each other, love each other, and to be able to not to be judgmental, not to be quick to judge, but to be able to listen more attentively to each other's hearts, and to hear where God is leading us in all of this, and God always leads us in the right path. That despite all the challenges that we face, that we are really called to care and to really express love to each other.
As the island prepares to become a republic and celebrate its 55th anniversary of independence, its history and culture are being highlighted in a number of books presented to the National Library Service. Barbadian author and former parliamentarian Wendell Callender presented the books and said his writing experience throughout the decades helped him achieve his many successes. The books cover a range of areas, including Barbadian history, culture, and race relations. Mr. Callender says it is his generation's responsibility to give back to society.
I would never in my life have expected that I could have produced the kind of material that I have been able to produce as manifested by the books you see here. And I also have done editions of some of these books before and other books as well. But I never dreamt that I would be able to make this kind of contribution to Barbados. Because as I look at the books, I'm seeing the whole of Barbados before me.
Cultural icon, the Most Honorable Dr. Anthony Gabby Carter, also spoke at the book presentation, congratulating his friend. Dr. Carter revealed his own plans for a book.
Wendell can tell you, but I've sent nearly all, if not all, of my poems to Wendell. And we are bringing up this book, the first book of which I hope to be 30 books on things that I experienced in my life, or things that I know of, or things that I've read of, and I write every single day.
Tonight's business report brought to you by the City of Bushtown Cooperative Credit Union Limited, measuring success one member at a time.
While there have been some supply issues across different sectors on the island, there's no major food shortage in Barbados. This from President of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Anthony Branker. He admits, however, that there is some disruption because of the COVID-19 lockdowns in Asia.
At present, we do not have any major disruption in terms of food items. So I think the Barbadian public can be comfortable that we do have food on island and food coming. It would be in areas that we would have disruptions, would be mainly in the area of specialty items, in some of the specialty health and beauty items, some in terms of specialty items in certain types of food. But generally, our commodities items we are quite stable with.
The BCCI president says the chamber has been preparing for any possible food shortages in the future.
We have been proactive as a private sector, and plans are in place to ensure that we order frequently enough and in enough quantities that should buffer any type of disruptions that will come. We are not saying that no item may be out of stock, but we are being proactive and ensuring that we are actively ordering, and we are also looking at different source points. We were fortunate that we had the Kenyan delegation here recently, so we're looking at different source points for items as well.
No preservatives and full-bodied flavors make up the delicacies to be found at Happy Treats. It is the latest business to open its doors in Barbados. Trevor Thorpe went on tour of the new enterprise with manager Talicia Lewis.
Bursting with flavors and catering to adults and children, that's how Talicia Lewis described Happy Treats after testing the market at AgroFest last year. She says her ice cream and popsicle enterprise has the potential to do well.
So far, it isn't doing too badly. It has gained mileage really with my baking clients, because that's who we really introduced it to at first. I recently started to put it on Instagram, and we get some support from there as well.
And she told the business report no one has been left out of her plan.
For the children's side of it, there is strawberry. There is a flavor called Sunset, which is strawberry, pineapple, and mango. There is one called Hello Yellow, which is mango and it has in coconut milk. And there's one called Tropical Fiesta.
And since the pandemic has been keeping many people at home, the adult flavors are designed to address the longer hours now spent indoors.
The adult side of it, there is Caribbean Breeze, which is kind of like a pina colada twist. Then there is Pretty in Pink, that's like a strawberry with some vodka and Prosecco. And then the last one is called Love Potion, which is a blend of mixed berries and red wine.
A full launch of the ice cream section is coming soon, but popsicles are available in a number of flavors.
You can find us on Instagram, or you can contact me directly, 826-2786, and we will get all the product that you need to.
And packaging?
Packaging, we have some in the traditional popsicle form with the sticks and stuff like that, but we also decided to bring the push pop. This kind of happened by the way.
Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
All right, we head back on over to the sports studio and welcome back Amory. What do you have for us?
Well, Shane, I'll start with some news of football as the Barbados Under-20 men's national football team will kick off their quest for qualification in the CONCACAF Under-20 qualifiers against Bermuda tomorrow in the Dominican Republic. The 20-man squad was selected following a series of trials and training sessions under the guidance of head coach Fitzgerald Carter. Following the draw in September, the Young Tridents were placed in Group C alongside Bermuda, Puerto Rico, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Montserrat. The Barbados team will then face Puerto Rico on November the 8th, St. Vincent and the Grenadines on November 10th, and Montserrat on November the 12th. Following the qualifiers, 20 teams will participate in the Under-20 Championship during the summer of 2022. This will include the top 4 teams from the qualifiers and the region's top 16 ranked teams. Well, on the horizon is a major project aimed at using boxing to combat the social ills of some of the island's most vulnerable communities. Project Ohana, a joint initiative of the Barbados Boxing Association, the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Community Empowerment, and the National Sports Council, will be rolled out within the coming weeks. It was an initiative that started back in March of this year, where the Barbados Boxing Association looked at avenues of getting more community involvement in the sport, but more so to help in the social transformation of youth in communities susceptible to acts of violence. Project Ohana, patterned off a similar project in Jamaica called Gloves Over Guns, seeks to go into the more vulnerable communities on the island to not only provide training and skills in the development of boxers, but also to train and acquire referees, judges, and coaches. Due to the ongoing COVID situation in Barbados, the official launch has been on hold, as the program intends to be delivered face-to-face. However, preliminary sessions will be done virtually, and the pilot community has been selected.
The initial plan was to start the project in 3 communities in which boxing gyms already exist. And these 3 communities were Belfield, Carrington Village, and Briar Hall, Kendall Hill, Silver Hill communities. However, on the advice of the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, we were encouraged to use Belfield as a pilot the project there, and then do the evaluation of that project before we move on to the other communities.
The Barbados Boxing Association will play a major part in supplying the administrative support for the project.
All the necessary human resources will be provided by the Barbados Boxing Association, and that, I am sure, will ensure its success. The national coaches are also heavily involved in the planning of various programs within the project, and the coaches who are going to be executing certain aspects will be drawn from that pool of coaches within the association. The association's technical commission also will be involved. Those who have been involved with and are certified in referee and judging. And so they will be also contributing to the teaching and the execution of some aspects of this project.
From the ministry's end, it's not only about financing, but creating safe spaces for youth to engage in more positive activities.
The ministry will also be providing financial support to the program, and to this end, upgrading was done at the Belfield Community Center to have it prepared for the hosting of the project. Equipment for the project has already been sourced, and the recruitment drive is ongoing.
When the project gets going, sessions will be held on Mondays and Wednesdays, 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., and on Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Remember that you can continue following TV8 and yet more news on our social media platforms, Instagram at CBC News Barbados and Facebook at cbcnews.bb, as well as our radio stations 94.7, 100.7 and 98.1. That's our news. Good night and be good. Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.